here today. We have members of the Lowell School Committee, Steve Jennings. Steve, where are you? Thank you for joining us right here. So you can tell there's a lot of interest, a lot of excitement, I should say, with that. And without any further ado, before I introduce Senator Donahue, the sponsor and individual who coordinated this event, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce City Manager Kevin Murphy. Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the Olympic Committee, welcome to the City of Lowell, and everyone here this evening. This is terrific. It's exciting to have this public hearing tonight. Let me just tell the Olympic Committee, we are excited and we are energized to host Olympic events here in the City of Lowell. This City Council has made it abundantly clear to my administration that we should do whatever is possible to make sure the City of Lowell is a host for some of the events. I think we're the perfect community to host some events. First of all, we have a wonderful river, the Merrimack River, that has hosted many rowing championships already. It's known for its quality. And we have the Songa Center, where we have championship college hockey. You don't know how much it pains me to say that. Championship college hockey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Playing at the Songa Center. They're hosting Notre Dame this weekend. So we're a sporting destination here in the City of Lowell already. And we have plenty of other entertainment venues between eating establishments, taverns, and whatever. So the city is ready, we're willing, and we're able to host these Olympic events, and we hope you look with favor upon us, and we will cooperate in whatever way possible to help you host them. Thank you very much.
As you can also tell, there's plenty of spirit with our passion in our sports. And with that, let me also recognize the Chancellor. I know he's going to speak later. Member of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Deborah Langer. Maybe throughout the evening we'll just recognize individuals. A member of our Planning and Development Office. We have a member from our neighborhood organization. This is really an exciting group, considering this is the first meeting. And with that, I would like to welcome everyone here, as well as members of the Olympic Committee. As the city manager has indicated, we're here to listen. We're eager. This is an exciting opportunity for the city of Lowell to have the possibility of hosting rowing on the wonderful river. As the city manager clearly indicated, there'll be no shortage of our New England accent here either, with our river and plenty of places to park, and look upon it with favor. So I think we will certainly make Boston and New England and our country proud. So with that, it's a great opportunity for us to showcase our wonderful city. People from all around the world will be tuning in should we get that. And I think we will do our city proud, our state proud, and the country. And with that, along those lines, I'd like to introduce the leading sponsor, who was the early catalyst on this effort, and we're so pleased that she's made us all believers. When no one thought that it could be done, Senator Donahue filed the legislation. This is a significant accomplishment certainly for our state, and certainly for our city. I'm proud to have called her a colleague for 8 years. She's back home in the council chamber where she started. This is a great, it's a great day and a great opportunity to have a discussion here in the city of Lowell. Without any further ado, we want to thank you, Senator Donahue, for your leadership on this, and we look forward to working on this in the next number of years. Senator Donahue.
To be home here, Mayor, and the council chamber looks much nicer than the days that I was here. There's heat and electricity and air conditioning even, I'm told, but not tonight. Thank you very much and welcome everybody. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to come to this community outreach meeting for Boston 2024. This is the first out of Boston meeting that is going to go statewide We call it 20 meetings in 20 weeks. And this is in connection with the Boston 2024 hosting the Olympics here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. A lot has happened over the past year. The legislation I filed formed a commission. The commission did public hearings, had 8 public hearings. We filed a report making the recommendation that hosting the Olympics would be feasible, but that a nonprofit organization would be required in order to process the bid, raise private dollars for the bid, and pursue the bid. And that is exactly what happened, and that's what you see here tonight as one of 35 cities. When the process started, the process of elimination came down to just 4, and Boston, Massachusetts was chosen on January 8th of 2015. In connection with that, we are, and I have had the pleasure of serving not only on the commission, but on the board of Boston 2024 Partnership. I've had the pleasure of working with individuals who have put blood, sweat, and tears into this bid process, obviously creating a wonderful bid that was chosen by the United States Olympic Committee to be the representative of the United States of America in the process before the USOC. But what's very important is that the community understands, and when I say the community, I mean all of the communities of Massachusetts. The city of Boston, of course, and the community meetings have started in Boston and are underway, and will be underway through the rest of the year up till September of this year. And this, as I mentioned, is the first of many community meetings that are going across the state, so that the community understands what the bid is, understands what the proposal entails, understands what the benefits could be, but more importantly, that Boston 2024 Partnership has input from the communities, and that's what this is about tonight. I am very honored to present to you and introduce to you some individuals who've been intimately involved with Boston 2024 that you will hear from. We will have a brief presentation, and then we'll open it up to community comment and comment from all of you. It can be questions, it can be comments. We'll see how we go. We're going to ask you to kind of limit the time and listen to the questions that came before you, because it's already been answered. But we really want to hear from you. So with that said, John Fish, let me tell you a bit about John Fish, who is the chairman of Boston2024.org. He was also on the commission that was established in the legislature. He wanted to be here tonight. He got caught up in some meetings in Boston with the United States Olympic Committee on very important business, things that we're talking about right here tonight. So if he doesn't make it, we're not going to hold up the meeting, but we are going to move forward. And I want to introduce to you who is the CEO of Boston 2024, Rich Davey. Some of you may know Rich Davey, but prior to beginning his work at the helm of Boston 2024, Rich Davey served as the Secretary of Transportation in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts under the Deval Patrick administration. It was a big job. We certainly know we have a lot of transportation issues, and so he might be happy to be at Boston 2024 right now. But and also here tonight, which you will hear from as well, is David Manfredi, the renowned architect of Elkis Manfredi firm in Boston, who is really and truly the architect, the originator of the plans that you're going to see and hear about here tonight. So without further ado, I'd ask Rich Davey to take over.
Thank you, Senator. I really appreciate that introduction. To the manager, to the mayor, members of the council, representatives, congratulations. We did not have a chance to work together with Dark, so congratulations to you. To the senator, obviously, Eileen, you've been a strong friend of mine. Lord Overpass comes to mind. Always when I hear the words Eileen Donahue, Lord Overpass, always is so. We've worked a lot together, and of course the chancellor as well. We've had an opportunity to work together. We are delighted to be in Lowell, and we hope that by the end of tonight, if you're not an enthusiastic supporter about what we believe can be a transformative event for our city, our state, I hope by the end of the night we'll answer your questions and you will be a believer. You know, the Olympics is not about 3 weeks in the summer of 2024. It's about a few things. It's about the power of sport being the language of peace, where nations from around the world who otherwise don't get along, sometimes are boring, actually are competing in the field of play in a way that is not counterproductive, that thinks about our humanity, that sees that while we may speak different languages, that we all appreciate competition, we all appreciate athleticism, we all appreciate each other. And Lowell, as mentioned, has a rich history in many respects, but certainly sports is one of the pieces of your tapestry of history. And we think there isn't a better place to talk about some of the venues which we'll talk about tonight being hosted here in Lowell. If John Fish were here, he would tell you a personal story about how sport transformed his life. And he's a severe dyslexic, did not know that he was, and was only able to begin to read and write in 9th and 10th grade. And the reason he was inspired to begin that difficult journey in the classroom is because a coach inspired him in football. And the coach inspired him to not believe that he was dumb, that he was being mocked at school, but that he could achieve something. And it was sports that allowed him to open his mind. And I'm quite sure that there is probably a person in this room who hasn't seen a child or someone else be transformed by the power of sport. That's the second thing this is about. Probably not about most of us in this room. I'm going to guess what most of your ages are. They're comparable to mine. But I think about my niece and nephew who are 9 and 5 years old, about why we're doing this. So it's not about that 3-week moment or 4-week moment in July and August of 2024. It's about the future of this state, of this city in Boston, and where we want to be, and how the Olympics can help that. Because if the Olympics don't help that, we shouldn't be big. We believe strongly that the Olympics coming to Boston, coming to Massachusetts, will help us dream big and get us to the place where we want to be in 2024 and frankly 2030 and beyond. So with that, we're going to play a short video. I'm going to kick it over to David and Freddie. We're going to give about a 15-minute PowerPoint presentation, and then we hope to have at least an hour or so for questions. I will stay as long as I need to tonight to make sure all your questions and comments are taken. So with that, we'll go to the video.
What gives a place its heartbeat, its life, its identity? Is it the buildings, our infrastructure at work? Sure, but look closer at what's behind all of it. The people. The forward-thinking, proud, indomitable spirit of the people. This is the heartbeat of Boston. Together, we show a proud legacy of forward progress, from our days as colonial settlers to our next chance to define the course of our history. You can see it worn into the footsteps of the Freedom Trail, in the pursuit of knowledge within the 100 universities and colleges in the greater Boston area, through the cradle of innovation that makes the Commonwealth an international hub for research, technology, and medical advancements. In our thoughtful infrastructure, among the top 5 most walkable, bike-friendly, and transit-friendly cities in America, a top 10 green city and the most energy-efficient city in the U.S. In the power of sports to unite us and carry our hopes and dreams for a better tomorrow. It's the pride we hold for our teams and institutions, bringing banners to our rafters, parades through our streets, and showcasing the resilience and determination of Massachusetts on a global stage. It's the recognition that athletics are a catalyst for our educational and economic prosperity, and that youth sports can shape our next generation of leaders and innovators. In building the legacy of our city and the Olympic movement through the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games, our focus is on innovation, applying groundbreaking new ideas and approaches to achieve the Commonwealth's vision. To create a sustainable model for hosting the Olympic and Paralympic Games that can become the blueprint for future host cities. We're here to put our history, technology, academics, infrastructure, and of course, our people to work in defining the next chapter of the Olympic movement. Together.
Good
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting us to Lowell. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you, Rich. It's a privilege to be here and to share a few thoughts with you. I want to start by saying that everything we've done to date in planning is really a first phase. It's a first phase that got us to the designation in January. And now we get into a much more rigorous phase of more detailed planning. And so we're going to show you some ideas tonight, some of those thoughts that did get us to where we are today, and thanks to the Senator and thanks to some of the venues in Lowell. But I want to start with our planning concepts, because while the venues may change and while the plan may get adjusted over the next couple of years, there are some planning concepts that we will hold true to. And the first one is environmental, fiscal, and social sustainability. We have the opportunity in the Commonwealth to produce the most sustainable games ever. And that is truly in alignment with the IOC's Agenda 2020. Agenda 2020 was issued in December of 2014. It sets a mandate going forward for all Olympic Games to produce affordable games in proportion, to produce games that make sense for the athletes. It means no white elephants. And as John Fish likes to say, no exotic animals. What he means is, we saw the bird cage in Beijing, we're going to see the frog in Tokyo. Those are not mandates from the IOC. Those are venues created by those countries for their own motives. Our goal is to produce games that make sense and to produce truly an extraordinary experience for the athletes and for the people who come to the Commonwealth to see the games. Second, we want to produce games that are walkable and, more importantly, that are transit friendly. And what we really mean by that is take advantage of our public transit. Maybe a hard time to say that right now, but we have been able to plan, we think, extraordinary games into our existing infrastructure and the planned infrastructure that will be implemented over the next 10 years. And we want to produce legacy for Boston and for the Commonwealth. What do we mean by legacy? What we mean is, how can the games make Boston and the Commonwealth a better place to live for having been here? That's really what we mean. And it means a number of different things in terms of accelerating infrastructure improvements, in terms of opportunities for new housing. But specific to Lowell, it can mean the opportunity for enhanced open space, for new recreational spaces along the Merrimack River. That the legacy of the games is a long-term legacy. It's shared by everybody. It's not just 3 weeks in the summer of 2024. And then lastly is leveraging existing venues. And boxing is clearly the ideal kind of candidate at the Saunders Center. What we can do, what we must do, is partner with our great universities, from UMass Lowell to UMass Boston to Harvard, BC, BU, Northeastern, UMass Amherst. It is the facilities of the universities that make this possible, that make it sustainable and make it affordable. And without those relationships, we don't win. We don't even get as far as we are today, but we certainly don't win going forward. So everything we've done today, we call proof of concept. These are plans that got us here. We're now engaging, as the Senator said, in a series of meetings throughout the Commonwealth and in the city of Boston, and we will learn from all that engagement, and there will be changes. We're also engaging with our national sports federations, so we're looking more closely at all of our proposals. And so these plans will evolve. Very, very quickly, I'm going to give you a big overview and then look specifically at Lowell and the Merrimack River. The games are organized, the majority of the venues are organized around two clusters. Cluster is an Olympic word that goes to how games get planned. There's a waterfront cluster, and in that waterfront cluster on the harbor are several key venues. The Olympic Village, which is housing for 16,500 athletes, coaches, and trainers, the immediate teams. There's the Olympic Stadium, which we propose to be a 60,000-seat temporary stadium at what we're calling Midtown. And the legacy of Midtown is to create a platform for future development, for future housing that is really transit friendly, that's on the red line, that's close into downtown Boston, the kind of housing you want to build because it is sustainable, because it doesn't rely upon automobile traffic. And we will use the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center for 6 different venues. It's already there. It's about to be expanded over the next few years. It provides the perfect kind of facilities for a series of venues. The second cluster is at what we call Beacon Yards. It's really the intersection of Harvard, BU, and MIT, and it represents the opportunity for 7 venues on Harvard's playing fields, in Harvard Stadium, at BU, at Davis Arena, and at MIT. Beyond that, there is Gillette Stadium down in Foxborough, there's TD Garden in Boston, there's the opportunity to do beach volleyball. We've looked at the Common, got a lot of reaction to the Common. There's other opportunities, other places. Beach volleyball is truly one of the most favorite of the games, a great revenue producer for the games. We think there's lots of opportunities to think about options around that as well as other sports. I talked about waterfront. I won't dwell too much about that. I talked about the university. I think the interesting thing about the university cluster in Boston, Cambridge, is that today this is kind of the backside of those 3 universities. It's what's now decommissioned rail yards from CSX. It will get, the space becomes available because of those decommissioned rail yards and the reconfiguration of Exit 18 into Mass Pike. It is the future innovation campus for Harvard. It will be a mixed-use community. The legacy is really not the back door of these 3 universities, but a new front door, a new intersection, a new opportunity for innovation, for science, technology, and frankly for mixed-use development, again in the heart of the city where there is great transit already and more transit coming with West Station. So let me come to the Merrimack River. And what we planned here is 2 venues, but 3 sports. And the 2 venues are rowing on the Merrimack River, and as the mayor said, you have a great history. I'm sorry, the city manager said you have a great history of rowing, competitive rowing at a very high level on the Merrimack River. We've done investigation of how you slow down the current. I know you've done it before. The course is about 1.5 miles. It's 2,000 meters. The Olympic course is 2,000 meters. And the river in many ways is perfect. It's straight. The stands, the spectator viewing platforms can be close in. The spectators can be quite close to the river. And the opportunity to get here is really quite good. And the opportunity to partner with UMass Lowell to provide some of the back of house, the operations, the broadcast facilities immediately adjacent to the start line is really ideal in many ways. Let me tell you a little bit about Olympic rowing. It is, for the Olympic Games, it's an 8-day sport. Meaning there's 8 days of competition. There's 550 athletes, and there will be as many as 20,000 visitors per day for rowing on the Merrimack. There's actually 2 sports on the Merrimack, proposed on the Merrimack. One is rowing, and the other is canoe sprint. Canoe sprint is a little bit smaller. It's about half the number of athletes. It may be as many guests, and it's a shorter duration, it's 6 days. But in total, then, there's 14 days of events proposed on the Merrimack of the 16 days of the Olympic Games. The second venue is the Sauna Center. And we have proposed at the Sauna Center at UMass Lowell boxing. Boxing, by the way, you learn a lot of very interesting things about the Olympics and planning Olympic Games when you embark on this endeavor. Boxing is one of only 2 sports remaining in the games which is 100% amateur sport. The other is wrestling. All of the other sports have some kind of professionalism about them, meaning that the athletes are being compensated in some way. America has a great tradition in boxing, and Lowell has a great tradition in boxing. We think this is a really a wonderful marriage of the two. Boxing, of course, the Saunders Center has a capacity of about 7,800. It's a 9-day event, so it runs simultaneously with the rowing events, and so it really will bring a significant part of the games to the Merrimack River. I had the wonderful opportunity to introduce the Chancellor. He doesn't need my introduction. I do want to say, though, we have to make a friend with that. I'm an alumnus of the University of Notre Dame. I will be here this weekend. That's fine. I will admit that last year we met under similar circumstances, and the Fighting Irish did not fare well. So I'm looking for odds.
Thank you very much, and we always enjoy playing Notre Dame. We played Notre Dame 5 times over the last 2 years, and we have 4 victories and 1 tie. So spend as much money as you can. The university gets 40% of the revenue. It's really important. But, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much. I also want to recognize Senator Eileen Donoghue because I remember when this was first proposed, and frankly, a lot of people thought there was no chance that Boston could be chosen. And we have seen that in Lowell in the past. I remember when Pat Logan proposed an urban national park for Lowell. Nobody believed it could happen. I remember when Paul Saunders said we should be a destination city. Let's build a beautiful arena and a brand new baseball park. Nobody believed it. Well, I just want to say I am very, very proud that Senator Donoghue is representing this city, this community, and I really want to compliment her on this achievement. Now, the university is very excited. All of the university presidents and chancellors are very excited in Greater Boston and throughout the state because I've talked to many of them. If you think about the Olympics, you get over 200 countries represented that come to the United States to participate. And if you look at our universities, we have well over 200 countries that are represented, students that come from all over the world to Massachusetts to get a high-quality, world-class education. I can tell you that one of the reasons I think Boston proposal was successful was because of the universities and the role that the universities will play. I think in particular the UMass campuses, all of them are very, very excited of the opportunity. We have housing, the opportunities in Boston for housing are fabulous. So this is really a great match. I want to speak to Lowell and our athletes. I got an email today from Shayla Donoghue, who graduated from UMass Lowell in 1988. She says she grew up in Lowell and has strong connections even today to the city. She says, I rowed in the 1992 Olympics and won a silver medal. The actual selection of the 1992 Olympic rowing team happened in Lowell on the Merrimack River. We trained in Lowell, we stayed at UMass Lowell dorms, and we ate in the dining halls. So we have done this before in Lowell. And I think when you think about the Merrimack River, the fact is the American Industrial Revolution in this country started on the banks of that river. We are all here. Lowell is here, Lawrence is here, Haverhill is here because of that river. And there's an incredible history of immigrants coming to the United States and settling in the Merrimack Valley. What a wonderful opportunity to showcase not only across the United States, but across the world, the Merrimack River. We embrace the challenges associated with this. As many of you may know, the Southeast Asian Water Festival has been held on the banks of the Merrimack River. Well over 10,000 people come from all over the world to participate in that. So we're very confident that we can do this. The Saunders Center at UMass Lowell is a great example of the community coming together, but we've invested, meaning the university, over $10 million into that facility and are prepared to make future investments to make sure that that works. And Lowell does have a rich history. I can remember growing up on London Street and walking to the Lowell Memorial Auditorium to watch the Golden Gloves. For years and years and years, we attracted the National Golden Gloves tournament. And all of you know that the fight was filmed at the Saunders Arena, and boy, wouldn't that be something to have the Olympics here in Lowell for the fights in the hometown of Mickey Ward. That would be great, and we are prepared to work and to cooperate on. So I think this is a great opportunity for Massachusetts. It's a great opportunity for all of our private and public outstanding universities. It's a great opportunity for the Merrimack Valley and a great opportunity for Lowell. So I just want to say I am delighted to be involved in this and look forward to the participation of folks that are here. I also have a very special duty here. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Reuben Sanker. Reuben was a member of the UMass Lowell cross-country track and field teams from 2005 until 2010. Reuben Sanker represented Cape Verde at the London 2012 Olympics, where he ran the 5,000 meters. Sanker was a four-time All-American, one of the greatest distance runners in UMass Lowell's history, and he has moved on to run in several international competitions and regional races. And his most recent accomplishment was he finished 21st in the 2014 Boston Marathon. Sanker hails from the Cape Verde island of Sal, and he immigrated to Boston at the age of 12. He attended the John D. O'Brien School of Math and Science in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and then moved on to UMass Lowell, where he enjoyed a magnificent career while earning his undergraduate degree in business administration. And we always like to have folks back to get their master's degree, and he earned his MBA in 2010. Sanker is currently the business manager of UMass Lowell's Office of Student Affairs, and he resides right here in Lowell.
Thank you, Chancellor. I'd like to thank the City of Lowell. They've been very supportive of my running career through the years. And also the UMass Lowell, they've been very supportive as well. And first I'd like to say I am very delighted to be here. It's an honor to be here and share some of my experience with you. Most of my challenging running has been done here in the City of Lowell. And I'd like to share a personal story with you so you can get to know me a little bit. I came to U.S., as the Chancellor said, in 1999. I was 12 years old. In 2014, I was graduating college, high school, and I was looking at colleges to go to for both running. I wanted to run in college, but also to try to be the first person in my family to finish college. And at the time, I was looking at schools. I had a lot of recruiting letters from different places. And I remember back, it was December, I believe December 10, 2004. It was a Friday night. It was raining very hard. And my parents and I, my dad was driving, my mom was the passenger side, and my grandmother, who was from Cape Verde, was here on vacation. We decided I was going to come over to Lowell for my recruiting trip. It was night. It was really dark outside. It was raining very hard. And we didn't have those, smartphones back then. So I had a map with directions, and I was trying to get to Lowell, but there isn't a straight way to Lowell. You have to go up 93, and then you have to take, I believe you have to take 495, and I just could not find a way to get to Lowell. And we got very lost. I was supposed to be in Lowell by around 8 o'clock. And it was 9:30, and I still wasn't in Lowell. Thankfully, Coach Gary Gardner was very nice to wait for me in his office until 10 o'clock at night. And that's when I arrived in Lowell. That was the first time I had ever stepped in Lowell, during my high school days. And that's just to show you, when Gary came, my head coach, Gary Gardner, he met me, and I was just so, so happy to be here, first of all, but also very touched by, him being here the whole time and waiting for me. And when he had only seen me compete once, in Roxbury, and he knew that there was something special about me, about the way that I worked really hard, and he understood that that I was someone who wanted to achieve something great, not just in running, but overall in my life. And he was able to accept me on the team. And from 2005 all the way through grad school, and after grad school, he continued to coach me. And in 2012, he was able to walk with me in the opening ceremonies at the Olympic Games in London. of sport. And that's one message that I want to bring to you, is about inspiring people. I was very inspired to come to Lowell. It was the first time I was in Lowell, and I was very well accepted with the team here. The university fit me very well. I was happy to be in college. I was the first one in my family to graduate college. I was the first one to attend grad school, and all of that could not have been possible if it was not for the way that I carried myself with sports and being able to envision sports with the same way that I envisioned accomplishing my goals in life. And there are a lot of things that you can learn from sports. You know, hard work, setting goals, going through the entire process, failing and starting again and going at it again, getting injured, getting injured and come back to competing, whether it's failing a test and studying harder the next time. And that's one thing that I think sports are a great way to influence you during the earlier career or while you're still in high school or middle school. And I see a lot of raw talent right here in Lowell. A lot of kids who are in high school, for example, the Lowell High School, they were state champions back-to-back years. There is a lot of talent, but also there are great coaches and great people in the city of Lowell who can guide them to achieve their goals. And it doesn't matter if they can't make it in sports or make it to the Olympics, but life is not just about sports. But you can use sports to learn a lot of life lessons. And as David said, the Olympics is not just a 3-week event. This is a lifetime. You know, for years and years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, a lot of people are going to remember, when they were little kids, when they were 3 years old, they went to see, boxing at the Songas Arena. And that's what's going to stay in their mind. And I think they're going to use that to influence the way that they carry their lives later on. When I was little, not little, but I was 14, 15 years old. My coach in high school took me down to watch the Boston Marathon, and I was also volunteering, holding the 2-mile mark sign for the runners coming by. And I just could not imagine at the time, when I was trying to break 5 minutes in a mile, that these elite runners could run the entire marathon, 26.2 miles, averaging 4:45 or 4:50 days. For me, seeing that in person was different than seeing it on TV. And that's something that the kids in Lowell are going to be able to capture when they see the Olympics here. And I think that's a great way to inspire them, for them to open their minds and know all the possibilities of sports. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you today for being here. I think this is a great movement, and I hope to be able to contribute as much as I can to bring the Olympics to Lowell and to Boston. Thanks. Ruben also left out, he's going to be, he hasn't been challenged enough, so he's going to be running the Boston Marathon next month, so good luck. He's always a tough act to follow, because I'm still waiting to break the 9-minute mile. So I'll buzz through these last couple slides, and we'll take questions. So a couple of questions that have come up, and I just wanted to hit them right on the head. The first question we often get is budget. How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to be ensured that the taxpayers of Massachusetts aren't going to have to chip in? Well, we have a very responsible budget of $9.1 billion in 3 phases, or three buckets, if you will. The first is security, which is the bottom line, which will require about $1 billion or so. Folks, I do want to be extremely clear. This is the one place that we do need the federal government support. If we do not get the federal government support, we are not asking Massachusetts or the city of Boston or the city of Lowell, for that matter, to pay for this. It is too daunting. With due respect to the Lowell police and Boston police, we will have, we hope to be, dozens of heads of state in town. This will be a national security event, and we just don't have the capacity to do it. Not unusual. The Super Bowl, for the last 13 years, has had federal security. And in fact, something I learned recently, when we are abroad, we actually have security personnel, military personnel, dispatched for our athletes. So if there is an incident or an an issue, that they can be safely evacuated. So this is an area we feel strongly about. We've talked to the congressional delegation about it. It's really not about Boston, but it's frankly, whether as Americans, do we ever want to host the games in the United States? And so this, to us, is an absolute deal breaker. The other two categories are the so-called OCOG and non-OCOG budget, sort of lingo from the Olympics. What does the OCOG budget mean? It's the operating budget to actually run the games, to set up the stands that we would put along the Merrimack River, for example, to retrofit or do whatever we would have to do at the Columbus Arena, to feed the athletes, to move them around the state. The budget for that is about $4.7 billion. Sounds like a lot. However, what London was able to do in terms of ticket sales, corporate sponsorships, and TV rights, we believe, without a problem, that revenue will come to us. NBC is already signed up to host or to view the games through 2032. The contract they have in place already with the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, will be due to whoever wins, Boston or Paris or Rome, our competition, over $1.5 billion alone, just from the TV rights, without lifting a finger or raising a dime. So again, given what we've seen on other Olympics in East Coast, United States-based games, we're very comfortable and confident we can raise that revenue. In addition, we've talked about other opportunities, potentially hosting some preliminary rounds of things like baseball and soccer in other cities. Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C. come to mind, which not only allow this to be really America's games, but we think there's some additional revenue opportunities there. And then on the non-OCOG budget, the Olympic Stadium, as David mentioned, and the housing that we're proposing to be at UMass Boston. For those who don't know, these are extremely desirable development sites in the city of Boston. And our job will be to work with developers, the Boston Redevelopment Authority, and the city of Boston to put Midtown out for a large mixed-use development, both before, during, and after the games. And then at UMass, we have a few ideas. One is, as the Chancellor knows, Chancellor Motley at UMass Boston is seeking to build new dormitories. He will not need, or UMass Boston will not need, the entire Olympic Village that he would build out. He would likely need about 30 to 40%. And so we're talking to UMass about how we can align what we want to do to have a legacy. From there, either a mixed-use development or another idea that we've been working through is modular housing that we could literally deconstruct and potentially reconstruct around the city of Boston or the region in places where we know we need moderate and, frankly, workforce housing, something we've been working closely with Mayor Walsh on. Transportation, something I know a little bit about. There's been some, I think, a little confusion about what we exactly need to do. And so I want to be clear. Folks, first of all, the only reason why we're sitting in front of you tonight is because of the investments we have made in ourselves over the last several decades in transportation. If we didn't clean up the Boston Harbor, if we didn't expand Logan Airport, I'm going to say the dirty word, if we didn't do the big dig, if we didn't make other transportation improvements in this Commonwealth, we wouldn't be sitting here today. The United States Olympic Committee chose us because of the investments that we all have made in ourselves. Now, in order to run the games smoothly, we definitely are encouraging and happy to see that the MBTA is making investments in red and orange line cars, buying new locomotives and coaches, all things that are currently underway. And then some transportation projects in the Boston area as well. We believe strongly that what is already under construction or being purchased today is what we need to run the games. There are other projects, things that people talk about, like South Station expansion in Boston, would be brilliant. Would make the games, frankly, I think, better in some ways. But we don't need those large projects to run the games. And again, this goes back to the point that this isn't about the games. It's not about those 3 or 4 weeks in August and July of 2024. If we want to make transportation investments, let's use the games as an opportunity to galvanize that leadership we need to get things done. And having spent 5 years in state government, a deadline isn't a bad thing either. How are we going to ensure that the games are on budget? Well, a few ways and techniques that we both used in Massachusetts recently, and then what other cities have been able to do for large-scale projects in the past. First is rigorous planning. Having this conversation tonight. You know, we're 9.5 years away from the games happening. I don't know about you, but often enough we don't talk about 9.5 years from now and being in planning and thinking through what those venues are going to be like. One of the challenges London had in their games delivery was that they decided first that their stadium would be temporary, and then when they started building it, decided later it was going to be permanent, and thus had to spend several $100 more million because they made a choice. We're having very candid conversations across the state to make sure that what we know is locked in, and so there aren't those kind of changes. Disciplined project management. You know, there's been a lot of opportunities in both the private sector and the public sector recently to have risk-shifting methods to get the contractors aligned with schedules, penalties and incentives, for example, something we used effectively at MassDOT. You know, we shut down I-93 several summers ago, as folks may remember, for 14 weekends, closed the Callahan Tunnel. We use those kinds of methods and techniques to make sure that the contractors were compliant with the contract, and both in those particular instances, those projects were done ahead of schedule and slightly under budget. Olympic Agenda 2020, this is something that David mentioned. You know, the International Olympic Committee came out, proclaimed 2 months ago, that they did not want to see games as they had in the past, with very expensive projects that had no legacy value after the games. That they want cities to bid only if the games themselves will enhance the city, only if the games themselves will help a region of a place in the world to move forward, and only if those facilities have a legacy value. And so, unfortunately, I think the Bird's Nest, for example, in Beijing, hasn't been used since the games closed in 2008. We are not planning that anywhere in the state. We're either going to use facilities that exist, like the Songus Arena, or we're going to build a temporary stadium and then take it down. And if that's not what the IOC wants, then they won't select us, for sure. Last is an insurance program. You know, there have been questions about what guarantees there may be. We don't know yet. The IOC's documents and that negotiation will happen 2 years from now. But we do know that Chicago, when Chicago bid for the Summer Olympics in 2016, had a pretty good insurance program in place. So we can backstop the city, we can backstop the taxpayer. If some of these things do fall through, we're able to make sure that our insurance program is there to cover any costs that would occur. I want to debunk one other myth, and that is that all Olympics are bad from an economic perspective. Folks, in the United States of America, we have turned last 3 games cash positive. They all made a profit. It is uncontroverted. It is undisputed by folks who would disagree with us generally on whether the Olympics should come or not. This is fact. In Atlanta, Salt Lake City, and Los Angeles all turned net cash positive. LA in particular is one I want to talk a little bit about. What they did with the money, the $250 million, $30 million or so, they created a fund, a charity, that has been in existence for the last 31 years, that has provided $250 million in grants for youth sports in and around the Los Angeles area. Mr. Fish, John Fish, and I had a chance to meet the woman who runs that program a couple weeks ago, and what they're doing out there is pretty spectacular. In the case of Salt Lake City, what Salt Lake City did was, rather than build a program like that, they gifted the $56 million back to the organization that was going to run the Olympic Village and run the facilities that were left behind. So you can still use the bobsled in luge today, for example. And that isn't a white elephant that was put on the city of Salt Lake. That money is used as capital investment to upkeep those assets. That's what we envision to do, is to turn a net cash positive and then think about together how we would use that for the benefit of sports and for kids in Massachusetts. And lastly, economic benefits. You know, we believe there's some work going on now to think about what this means for Massachusetts. So in the meantime, we've got some analogies from these other 3 states. So whether it's job creation, again, uncontroverted, that job creation occurs because of the Olympics, largely in construction, tourism, but largely in construction leading up to the games. Being able to leave behind legacy uses. You know, leaving behind dorms for UMass Boston was not our idea. Georgia did it. Atlanta did it in 1996. The Olympic Village was converted into dorms for Georgia State and Georgia Tech University. Salt Lake City used that as a moment to get 2 light rail projects moving. Again, I think analogous here that we together decide we want to push projects forward with the state, and the Olympics can bring that kind of sense of urgency to bear. I just want to make a note, I mean, the senator did say this. Obviously, this is delighted to be in Lowell. It's our first of what will be many meetings around the state to talk to folks about what this means, what we're doing, and to take questions. So again, on behalf of 2024, we're delighted to be here with you tonight. And at this point, as I said, I will stay as long as I need to answer questions and to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So this is the important part of the meeting as well. I hope we've given you information, but you still may have some questions or comments or input. This is truly a community meeting, and we could, ask people to write their questions, but I think tonight what we'll try and do is have people come to the microphone. We're going to try and answer everybody who comes forward. So if you just come forward, state your name and your comment or question, we'll do our best to answer.
Hi, Beth Logan, Chelmsford resident. First, I'm sorry, I am a Georgia Tech alum. It's the Georgia Institute of Technology. And NEMCOG has discussed it with the town, and I don't want the focus to be solely on Lowell and then have disasters in other areas which would make us look bad. That was it. Thank you. Good luck. It's a lot of work.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Scammell. I'm the president of the Merrimack River Rowing Association. We are the community access group. We row out of the UMass Lowell Boathouse. We're about 100 members. So if anybody in the community wants to learn to row, we have learn to row programs. We have recreational programs. Our rowers compete. We won 2 silver medals at the Head of Charles this year. And I just wanted to note, we run one of the big regattas that's held every October. We have 3,500 athletes in one day, and we estimate about 12,000 spectators. So we're not that impressed with your 500. And so
We might have you run it for us. Very impressive.
Last night we had our monthly club meeting, and the club specifically asked that I come and let you know that you have the full support of the Merrimack River Rowing Association. We have people that have been involved in rowing for a long time and involved with the U.S. Rowing. One of our members is involved in the USOC also as a consultant, I believe, there. So
We'd be delighted to get information, because if we can come to the event in October, we'd like to be there.
well, even better, June 5th or 6th, whichever one is a Saturday.
I knew there was an upsell.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have a Learn to Row Day, and you're welcome to come down, and we'll put you about Senator Donahue, I forgot.
I've already committed, so live in your spare time.
Yeah, Chancellor, we haven't had a chance to, I gave him an award either. So,
I'd be delighted.
okay, so I'll be sure to invite Senator Donahue and to our Learn to Row Day, and then you can hopefully come down.
Great.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
My name's Lowell. Thank you to all the dignitaries of Lowell for putting this together. Just a brief introduction. My name is Derek Corriere. I represent the Lowell Slavers, the Industrial Revolution. We've worked with Chancellor in a lot of projects. I was the steward on a beautiful building, UMass Lowell Crossing. So I just want to start that relationship with all of you, continue these relationships, and see if we can put the men and women of Lowell to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Greg Cleary. I'm from Haverhill. And I've got one comment. Number one, I volunteered to work on the Spread the Word Committee, and I've already gone to 1 or 2 events. And I have to tell you, this is going to be a beautiful ride for the next 10 or 11 years, because like you say, the children, grandchildren, I have one grandchild now who's 2 years old. I'm expecting a grandson in September.
Congratulations.
One of my things on my bucket list are to be in that stadium. Hopefully, you'll expand it to 80,000 seats, but I will be in that stadium with my grandchildren when their torches light, and that is a dream of a lifetime. And I can go on, but the reason I had two questions. I know that you mentioned Boston College, but in all of these renderings, I have not seen any use of the Boston College campus where there is a 45,000 seat stadium. There is a 9,000 seat arena next door, and a place right next door, Shea Field, which is used for tailgates in the fall, but it would be a wonderful beach volleyball venue. If Boston Common doesn't work. Consider that. I don't know if it will. But one thing I wanted to ask, I live in Haverhill, and I didn't know if there was anybody from Lawrence and the other parts of the Merrimack Valley. Will you be doing any outreach to our communities? I live in Haverhill, and I don't know if we have any facilities, but we are going to get positive effects on it. I was on a radio show Monday night, and somebody asked me, yes, there are going to be positive events, our restaurants, our hotels. We have 2, 3 on a campus environment. One is going to be built in a campus environment next to Northern Essex Community College, which also hosts some of UMass Lowell is there as well. Welcome to town. So I'm just wondering, will there be any outreach or any process that our community leaders can go through to reach out to you?
Sure. So a couple of answers. The first on Boston College. It's true, we don't have a venue yet specific for Boston College, but BC has offered their support and their assistance. And so as we go through our review, as we maybe move venues, or in one instance, to be very candid, we propose sailing in Boston Harbor. We've heard from, frankly, U.S. Sailing and others that maybe Buzzards Bay would be better. So now that we put out our materials, and we're able to talk to international federations, and athletes are giving us feedback. Communities are obviously giving us feedback too, but so are athletes about potentially better venues. So BC could potentially be a venue. One thing we didn't mention is that a lot of countries will come in early to Massachusetts, and so they'll be probably looking for places to practice and to stay in advance of the games themselves. And so college campuses, including BC, and others outside of the Boston area, I think there's a real opportunity that, we don't know the details quite yet, but we're thinking about that and how some communities might not get a venue, but there's definitely ways to get communities involved like Haverhill. At this point, we're focused on our community meetings, on communities and neighborhoods where we are actually putting a particular venue. But in the future, which I'm happy to, we're happy to take our show on the road, Haverhill or whomever.
Thank you about the mention for Boston College, because I know John Fish is a BC grad, so.
And I'm a Holy Cross grad, so.
While you're at it, not a bad idea, because I haven't heard Worcester being used, Lake and Cinnamon, the DC, what is now called the DCU Center, Dayton Field. Those are sites that you could use as well.
And you would be surprised if we talked to a few schools on Worcester for potential as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. Before I begin, I'm a Dartmouth grad, so I have no skin in the game. My name is Robert Buckley. I'm an attorney that specializes in land use development, but I'm here this evening in my capacity as vice chair for Mill 6-3 Coalition, which is a truly unique coalition between the communities from Burlington and New Hampshire border and the major businesses to address major issues such as transportation. And I'm here to say that as you go forward, I hope and trust that you'll involve us, because we'll work with you to make this happen. Because I think when I was sitting back there about 4 years ago, I had the honor of being in Barcelona talking to some of the city officials. And I think people touched upon it. It's not a 3-week event. It's a 50-year transformation. And the benefits that come out of something of this magnitude, our children and grandchildren will speak about, and the vision and the execution of it is so critical. And finally, I'd just like to say that for the next 2 to 4 years, the world's going to be looking at us. Let's show them what we have here, what we can do here, because I think that the long-term benefits are truly phenomenal. Thank you.
Back to Barcelona. Barcelona, in many ways, a model for us. We traveled to Barcelona last spring, almost a year ago now. We met with the folks who planned those games for 10 years. They're absolutely right. They talk about the games today. The games were in 92, 22 years ago, 23 years ago, as if they were last year. And the games in Barcelona were truly transformative to that city in all kinds of infrastructure ways, in terms of youth sports, in terms of the legacy in the city, the reinvention of the waterfront. They were truly extraordinary.
They reclaimed the waterfront, which was a disaster, and turned it into an amenity. I know, David, your skills, having worked with you, so I trust that you'll have that same vision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bob Dan. I'm a lifelong resident of Lowell, and I graduated from UMass Lowell way back in this Lowell state. But I would like to thank Senator Donahue and the members of the committee for being here tonight. It's a wonderful start to this program. I have 2 quick points. One is I had the good fortune of meeting Ruben Sanka before he was in the London Olympics, and my wife and brother-in-law and his family, we all attended the London. I attended 13 Olympics in person myself, and Ruben was nice enough to show us around the Olympic Village back in 2012. And what Ruben can vouch for here is that Senator Donahue has had a vision years ago to bring this in front of the legislature. One of the points that where Ruben stayed in the Olympic Village was that it is now used as low-income housing. And I think that's a vision that the committee has at this particular time to look down the road for tourism in the state of Massachusetts, into the city of Lowell. What can the Olympics do to add to the, not only the excitement, but to the long-range plans for the city of Lowell and for the city of Boston and the surrounding communities. The second thing is there was an article in the Lowell Sun just today from one of the sports writers mentioning that isn't this a great time to be a sports fan with March Madness to start, and how people are so enthusiastic with their faces painted and the school pride that the students are showing at the games you see on TV and games right here in the city hall. But that pales in comparison to the enthusiasm, to the pride that you see from the different countries, and the fans of the athletes and the fans of the different countries that participate in the Summer and Olympic Games, and to sit there and have a beer with somebody from Australia or France or China, and to just to grasp and to absorb the enthusiasm that they show and the pride that they show in their country and in their athletes is just beyond reproach. And I would like to just say that if we can pull this off, I know the announcement is in September of 17, actually is when Boston will be chosen as the 2024 representative. About 2.5 years from now, so it's not that far away. The games seem to be 9.5 years away, but the announcement will be in September of 17. But the pride, and I wore my shirt today from Senator Donahue, and I wore my pin hat today to show my enthusiasm for these games. And I know everybody that's sitting here at this particular moment feels like I do, and we are going to get those games. So, yeah, that's that.
My name's Dean Hartog. I live in Chelmsford, Mass. I've been to 2 Olympic Games. I'm sorry. He's been to 14. I'd like to, in regards to the map, there's a bridge across the river in North Chelmsford. Can you explain that to me, please?
I can try. It's the Rock Bridge, as I'm sure you all know, and the bridge has been studied. Actually, our transportation consultants, VAC from Boston, have studied the bridge on behalf of the Commonwealth. There are, I believe, 9 different proposals for rebuilding the bridge. Some are in place, some are, I believe, 2 are west of what we're showing here as the venue. One is east. I know no decision has been made, and funding is currently not in place. There is some coordination to do there with the rebuilding of the bridge. Like many other things, the Olympics could be an accelerant. It is actually important for the Olympic planning to understand the future of that bridge and to understand when it would be rebuilt and where it would be rebuilt. But again, Lowell has hosted some very successful rowing events on the Merrimack River, and we're sure we can figure that out.
So we made the walk to the bridge.
Hi, welcome to Lowell. Senator John here. My name's Debbie Belanger, and I head up the Convention and Visitors Bureau for the Greater Merrimack Valley. And I can't tell you how excited I am about hosting these games in 2024. I've been in my position for over 15 years, and we've accomplished things that we never thought we would be able to accomplish, especially in the area of sports. From hosting the Men's World Curling Championships in 2006 at the Songus Center to working with Karen Steele and others that have been up at the podium to do a lot of these rowing events on the river. So I can't thank you enough for choosing Lowell. I think it's kind of interesting that you have all of these other communities who want to have these events in their communities, but Lowell is pretty special to me. I grew up in the city. I live over in Pawtucketville. I walk that river pretty much 4 times a week. So one of the big things, because I understand the sports and the pride, when we hosted some of these events, when we had the curling, we had 14 different countries here, and the community really got behind it. And that's a legacy that I know will happen from the Olympics. And it's kind of interesting because my goal was to retire in 2020. You just extended it to 2024. What a way to go out. It will be my swan song, so to speak. But I don't want to just talk about the sports part of it. One of the things that intrigues me so much is the fact that we will be marketing the state of Massachusetts and the city of Lowell for so many years to come. And the cultural and the arts that we have in the city, from the Whistler House to the American Textile History Museum with their Smithsonian affiliation. You can't buy that kind of advertising. So I just want to thank you for Senator Donahue. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, there have been a lot of naysayers along the way.
There's just a few.
Just a few. But whatever our organization can do to help this along, we're certainly here to help in any way that we can. And if we can get the improvements that we need infrastructure-wise, like a new road bridge, that would even be a win all the way around. So again, thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Scott Larman. I'm a 20-year resident of Lowell, and I love Lowell. I love the United States. My uncle was actually the late George Haydock of Lowell. I'm a teacher at Lowell. I'm hopefully going to inspire some children to go on to the Olympics. That would be great. My only concern is with the city of Lowell, not necessarily the Olympic Committee, but the members of the city council. The question to you is, what's going to happen with all these special projects going on in Lowell to the projects that are already in motion, or the ones that have been stalled, like 9.5 years in the future is great. I'm looking forward to the Olympics if they happen, and they don't impact the taxpayer. But I'm also looking 9.5 years in the past when FEMA deregulated the BFW highway, which is the dike that stops the Merrimack River from coming into the neighborhood, and the pumping station was left derelict by the city of Lowell, and that project is now 10 years old, and I know 2 years ago, it was mandated by FEMA that the city of Lowell had to fix that pumping station, part of a 3-level plan. That hasn't happened yet. What's going to happen with projects like that, like multi-million-dollar projects that should have at least been completed by now or near completion? Are those projects going to be totally backburnered? Are they going to be looked at and fixed, especially where so much attention is going to be being paid to the Merrimack River? I'm just wondering how that's going to impact the city of Lowell and their plans for today to help us get to the Olympics in 2024.
I think the mayor wants to say a couple of words.
I didn't think I was going to have to work tonight. Those projects will continue. If you watched the city council meeting last night, that has already been encumbered for some of the projects we're talking about, pump station, on the VFW and wastewater treatment. Those infrastructure problems, projects, those will continue in spite of this. We hope, after conversations with Senator Donahue and members of the delegation, that should Boston be selected and should Lowell be considered for some of these venues, we hope to benefit, i.e. for transit and infrastructure improvements that will be required, and that I presume the IOC will encourage the city and the state to invest in. So those are discussions that we have had, whether it's, the trolley system. Can we benefit? Is there an opportunity for the city to expand and provide that critical link that we've been looking for federal investment for years? So I think there's opportunity for Brookbridge, trolley, other infrastructure projects, and I think it's a golden opportunity for the city, for the citizens, and the taxpayers to benefit from Boston going forward.
Thank you.
My name is Celeste Bernardo, and I'm the superintendent of the National Park here in Lowell. And I didn't expect to speak, otherwise I would have worn my uniform. But I did just want to, I couldn't resist to come down and just say how excited we are. We have a fabulous national park here. We know during the Olympics, all of these people will be coming, and although they'll be here for sports, they'll be looking for other things to do. We have a saying here that the city is the park, and the park is the city, because the whole historic downtown, the 5.6 miles of canal systems, we run boats out on those canals, we have vintage trolleys. It's a fabulous time here in Lowell, and we know that there'll be lots of opportunities for human history stories, as well as highlighting the many diverse communities that initially were brought here to work in the textile mills, but continue today. We have almost 40 languages spoken in the high school. So it is an incredible, there'll be so many connections to all of the different international visitors here. So we look forward to hosting you, and forward to working with you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Espinola. I proudly represent Greater Lowell High School from Drake, Massachusetts. I'm looking at that sign behind the chancellor over there. I happened to be on the field in 1996 as a police officer when the women won the gold medal, and I was actually in the doping tent right after they won. You touched the doors, the train stopped. It stopped, and with that amount of people in there, they had to make some adjustments, but I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen as many people in my lifetime in one spot and not cause a problem. When I walked out into the University of Georgia, they have 117,000 people can sit down. 117,000 people can sit down at the University of Georgia, sell out for their football every single weekend is a sellout. When I walked into that stadium, it was huge to begin with. When they had the first soccer game, I was like, are you kidding me? We're going to get killed. I was part of the hooligan squad, and if you guys pay attention to soccer, they have people that go around and they cause problems over in Europe with the soccer games. And unfortunately, at some points in time, some people get hurt, and a lot of times there are people that get killed. So you have 117,000 people at a stadium with people standing, and when they win the gold medal, you would think that we're in trouble. Well, I'm on the field, I'm looking up, 25 rows is all I can see, and then there's people above that. Not one peep from anybody, but cheering. and standing up and clapping for them. There were absolutely no problems whatsoever. So on a tactical level, I believe that I was chosen because I was tactically trained at the expense of the city of Lowell. I was on the SWAT and MLAC team, and I believe that part of it, the security part of the Olympics, is probably going to be something different than people expect. I think they're going to think it's a lot of costs and everything, but it's going to come from communities like Lowell that have trained people like me in their tactics. Now, we're talking 1996, which was 15 years ago. We swept the University of Georgia Stadium 3 times a day by hand in dogs. It's 15 years later. We're talking another 9.5 years till we get to 2024. The technology that's going to be available is going to be unbelievable. And I believe that the security back in 96 was fantastic, which I'm also saying that probably that the security is going to be better than none in 2024. The economics part of it is when I was at the Olympics, I literally talked to people when I was going around. You got to eat breakfast places, and to get outside of the dorm. I actually lived in the University of Georgia dorm. Was an experience. But they were the #1 cafeteria in the country at the time, so the food wasn't that bad. But we had to go around, just to spend time outside the dorm, just to get away from it. We worked 12, 15 hours a day. We spoke to business owners that literally said, they spoke to us, I know that's it, and I actually want to literally saying it, but they told us that if the Olympics hadn't come, when it did, they'd be out of business. They'd be out of business. Places were packed, people were having fun, there weren't many problems. So economically, I could see structurally, infrastructurally, economically, how this could benefit Massachusetts beyond what anybody can imagine. I know you guys are doing a good job. I've seen it. You just walk down the street in Atlanta, LA, and you'll see what you're really talking about. And when these Olympics are over, I believe that people will say, we're glad that we had them, and that's a fantastic thing. So I can say this on a personal experience and a taxpayer experience. I don't think that Massachusetts will ever see anything like this for a long time, if they ever do. And I appreciate all the help that you guys have been doing to try to push this along.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to add a comment. I'd like to make a donation in the following way. Back about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I can't keep track of time, I happened to move into a piece of property in North Carolina, and my next door neighbor was Michael Jordan. As it turned out, as we all know, in Barcelona.
You'd like to donate Michael Jordan? This is great news.
I wish it was. As it turns out, that was the year in Barcelona where it was the first time that professional athletes played in the Olympic competition. And as a result of my relationship with Michael and the fact that he lived next door, he gave me his game shirt in Barcelona and signed it. And so what I'd like to do, for what it's worth, is, I don't know what to do with it, it's sitting in the basement, but I'd like to be able to donate that game shirt to this cause, because it really is special, because Michael now owns 2 or 3 professional sports teams in the Carolinas, but yeah, he gave me the shirt, and I had it framed, he signed it, so I'd like to turn that over, Eileen, to you folks as part of this situation. Marty, who knows, maybe you can hang it in the arena next to the McCallum shirt with the Loch Monsters on it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sarah Bogosian. I'm the president and presently the executive director of the Worcester House Museum of Art, with the birthplace of James McGill Whistler, the famous American artist. I am so excited about this. The Worcester House Board, myself, will do anything we can to help Eileen. We're very, very proud of her and what she's doing for the city of Lowell.
I've been fortunate enough to be in Barcelona. I've seen the Olympic site there. I've seen what it's done to the waterfront there. And I've seen what it's done to the arts and cultural community there afterwards. So it's a real plus. It'll be wonderful for Lowell. Also, last year I was asked by Anita Walker, the head of the Mass Cultural Council, to go as part of the Massachusetts delegation to visit London. We went all through London to look for accessibility and all inclusive design sites. We went to all of the museums, a number of them, 4 and 5 a day. We went to the Olympic site, saw the Olympic site there. What it has done for London has been unbelievable. We were fortunate enough to go to City Hall and to meet with the planners there, the work with the Olympic Committee. And culturally, arts-wise, it has just increased tremendously, the tourism. And they're building in London, amazingly, all of the different areas in which they're building the city. So I really see a plus, and I'm hoping and praying that it works out for Lowell. Thank you so much, and good luck with your efforts.
Thank you.
My name is Sam Antonasio, and the question I have is, what are the avenues for the residents of Lowell to, say, contribute? Is there a game plan that will allow us to gather and collaborate in maybe stimulating the whole bidding process, like getting things going early on? Because it's going to be 2 years before a decision is going to be made, but what are the things that we can do as local residents to push this agenda?
I think, thank you. I know the city council has a subcommittee, and maybe the mayor wants to speak to that. The subcommittee having to do with the Olympics, specifically the Olympics, and that's probably,
We would be delighted if you want to volunteer. We're going to have internship and openings this summer, the next couple summers. There's a lot of opportunities to get the word out, and so at the end we can certainly get your information. But 9.5 years, in some respects, is a long time, and in some respects, is not enough time. So we would be delighted to use your time in that regard. Certainly here in the city, there may be others that prefer to be on that.
No, I think he answered very well. I think we'll collaborate with the committee as we move forward. And exactly the reason why we set up a subcommittee in the city council in order to work through those issues with Donnie and the members of the committee.
thank you.
Can I just add
Oh, Council Lady.
to what the mayor said? When we start meeting with our committee, there'll be plenty of opportunity, and within those 2 years, just cleaning up our neighborhoods and beautifying them will be probably be a tremendous help to show that we want the Olympics. So, thank you.
And there are handouts, they're green papers for opportunities to get involved and volunteer right down there. So, good evening.
Hi, my name is Henry Caron. My wife and I have been Lowell residents for the last 22 years, and I'm a member of the Lowell Cultural Council. And as luck would have it, this is just a comment, but last night I went to see a documentary about George Fossey. And you talked about the boxing and everything at the arena, but apparently Lowell has an incredible legacy with wrestling and everything else with Coach Blood at the high school. And I probably would consider that along with the boxing at the Saunders arena. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Stevens. I'm president of the American Textile History Museum. Thank you, Deb, for the plug. We are thrilled with this prospect of doing this. And I'd like to say that Lowell, it's been mentioned before, but the Merrimack River, which helped found Lowell in 1824, is going to have a 200th anniversary of that. And I think driving that force built Lowell and created the community we have here. I think this is going to be a great addition to the community here. Thank you for your work. Thank you, my team.
Thank you, John.
My name is Paul Rowley, and I'm a resident of Lowell. And I would just like to point out in the city that we have this great opportunity to try to do something about Dutton Street. And making it more walkable and accessible, I think this would be, I know the Lord Overpass has been mentioned already, and I think this would be a good opportunity to do some more, make Dutton Street more permeable for pedestrians. And then I had a question about the work bridge. Is there anything crucial about the design? The pier, I think there are 2 piers in it now?
I think that's true.
No, does that matter at all?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
Okay.
Piers are a problem for competition rowing, so we're hoping that the timing of replacing the bridge coincides with the timing of the event. You probably know the rope bridge was built as a temporary bridge, and I don't remember now, somebody I'm sure in this room knows, 1950 something. So it's time to replace it.
And we are hoping that the conversation on the Olympics can accelerate the replacement of the walk bridge. It's badly needed. I know people who go over it, I can see some of your faces right out there that deal with the headache every day. So it's an example of can the Olympics accelerate infrastructure improvements that are badly needed and already being planned.
Right, well, I was just concerned about the Lord Overpass, because that's already in the works now, so I just want to make sure.
And let me take a little commercial break, because then Secretary Davey works directly on making that happen for the City Hall. Thank you, Secretary.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Dennis Canny, lifelong resident of Lowell. And I have one request. If Boston should receive the Olympic proposal, would you please put in a bid to have the survivors of the Boston Marathon carry the Olympic torch? I think it'd be a great symbol of a Boston strong, of resilience, and hope, to the whole world. And I'd like to include a couple of local residents, maybe Sidney Corcoran, Rose Sedoya, or Jeff Palmer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a great point, sir. It's one thing we haven't talked about in our hearings, but I have not been involved. But when you talk to folks who had an opportunity to carry the torch anywhere in the world, there will be a lot of opportunity for Americans and for citizens of Massachusetts to carry the torch, which I'm told is a pretty inspirational moment. So it's a great idea, though, with the Boston Marathon survivors. So we'll definitely keep that as part of our torch relay.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Well, let me take a moment. I would like to, I'm sorry, one from the balcony.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Dolan. I'm 57. I grew up right here in Lowell. And I'd like to welcome the Olympic, those who are studying to bring the Olympics to Lowell. I have a brother-in-law, Chuck Stoninger, who actually carried the torch the last time the Olympics, the torch came through. So it's very exciting on that side. My concern, however, would be taxes. As the taxpayer, how high are they going to balance from where they are right now to making the needed fixings to have the Olympics? I would love to have to see the Olympics here. My son is very much involved in sports. Presently, he's playing baseball at Daniel Webster Community College in Florida. And I have to say, I'm a very proud mom. He pitched at 15-5 game, and they won. So I am very excited about the Olympics coming to Lowell. Sports has been a big part of my life with my son. But that would be my major concern, would be how high are my taxes as a resident of Lowell going to bond should the Olympics come to Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the answer is we're not seeking any taxpayer dollars except for the security budget, as I mentioned, which is federal, not state. If it's not federal, we're not going to have the Olympics. And the model that we've outlined, not only do we have that commitment, but we feel strongly that we can meet that commitment because the United States has been able to have net cash positive games, because we believe strongly that the revenue we outlined, TUX and other things, will be extremely accretive to, games on the East Coast of the United States. I didn't mention this, but about a little more than 50% of all revenues derived at any games anywhere in the world come from the United States. They come from either TV rights or corporations that sponsor McDonald's and others that sponsor athletes in the games. So we're already very generous as Americans to the Olympics, and I think that continued kind of sponsorship spirit would continue. But we have crafted a bid that does not rely on taxpayer dollars.
Hi, my name is Santiago Rodriguez. I'm originally from Argentina. I've been here for a couple of years. My wife's doing a PhD at UMass Lowell, so that's why we're here. My question regarding the Lowell seems very on it, and it seems that, well, you have the Songas, you have the river, it seems working pretty well here. My question is actually regarding the stadium, the temporary stadium. You mentioned London as an example of something that started temporary, ended up not being that way. The stadium is always a symbol of the Olympics, right? It's where the torch is going to go to, it's where the fire is going to flame there. So if you could give a bit more information regarding the temporary stadium in Boston.
Sure, let me try. As I said, the reason that we are proposing a temporary stadium is because its use is really limited to the Olympic Games. There is no user that would regularly use the stadium after the Games. And we are committed to no white elephants, no bird cages. But the legacy can be truly extraordinary. And that is the legacy of building a platform for development of housing, close-in, transit-oriented housing in the city. What we're exploring is the possibility that the temporary stadiums are typically built out of what I'll call more light gauge metal framing. The opportunity is to not just build a recyclable stadium, which would be absolutely the kind of minimum obligation, but to build a repurposable structure. What I mean by that is, and this is, we are the beneficiaries of living in the Commonwealth with incredible intellectual capital at our great universities. But if the stadium could be built with steel that could be fabricated to be reused, not 10 years later, but reused immediately in the city or in the Commonwealth, and fabricated that way, not just recycled, but repurposed. There's an immediate legacy to the materials of the stadium itself, and then there's also the legacy of the infrastructure that's put in place to support the activities of the stadium. So, kind of as an example of everything that all the venues that we're thinking about, they have to have a legacy story. Whether that legacy is a partnership with one of the universities, whether that legacy is creating housing, student housing at UMass Boston, or whether that legacy is then somehow that those building materials are reoriented to an immediate use within the city or surrounding communities.
Just the point there, the opening ceremonies were at the Atlanta Braves Stadium. They were 130 strong. After the ceremonies were done, they took the outfield out and they closed the outfield, and the Braves are currently playing there right now, and they recycled the outfield. So if you want to put it into practices, that's what they did for the Atlanta Braves, and I'm sure that Mr. Turner had some part of the allocations of funds to do that, to have a brand new stadium at the end.
Thank you. You know, I'm going to have to, I apologize, Steve, but we did give a limit, and we did hear from you. I just want to make sure I have time to introduce the chairman of Boston 2024, who has made it here from Boston. Let me just give a brief introduction, because it's very difficult to do that when it comes to John Fish. But John Fish is the president and principal of Suffolk Construction, involved in so many civic engagements and commitments, but his commitment to this effort, the Boston 2024 2024 effort has been unbelievable and incomparable. He served on the commissions that was established that I mentioned earlier. He is now chairman of this nonprofit group going forward. He has been one of the prime movers and inspiration behind this. So without further ado, I'd like to ask John Fish, thank you very much, by the way, for coming up here tonight. We're happy to have you. If you don't mind coming up to the podium to say a few words. A little out of order, but...
Again, it's a real pleasure and honor to be here. People often ask me why I'm getting involved in bringing the Olympic Paralympic Games to Boston in 2024. And there's really two things that are really near and dear to me as I think about this. I think about the Olympics really about sort of the next generation. I often say to most crowds that the Olympic Games themselves, the beneficiaries of those games, will not be the people in this room tonight. It will not be myself. It will not be most of the people here. It will be your children and your grandchildren. We are the first generation in America to leave this country worse off than we received it. We've got over $18 trillion debt right now. We have global warming that is undisputed. We've got the most chaotic world right now ever in the history of America, in the United States, in the planet. You think about all the different activities going on. The Olympics really are all about a peace movement. It gives the world an opportunity to come together for 2.5 weeks, over 210 to 220 countries, of all different nationalities, all different cultures, and all different beliefs of systems of government. And they compete at the highest level at a point in time in a peaceful environment. And that's a very, very powerful thing when you think about that. And what it brings me to is the power of sport, what it does. Sport is an opportunity that unites different people together for a common cause. Health, wellness, things that unfortunately have got out of our aperture for some reason. And we need to sort of bring that back into our community. And to me, it really is an opportunity, because all of us, unfortunately, our culture is about instant gratification. And we're talking about a serious issue about the future of our kids and our grandkids. And are we willing to have these tough conversations, these challenging conversations, conversations that sometimes make people a little uncomfortable? But if we don't think boldly, we aren't willing to challenge ourselves, we're just going to continue the way we're going right now. And I'll tell you, I'm not satisfied with that. As a company, I've committed, I'm not going to build one job, I'm not going to get involved in anything having to do with it. But I'm going to give it 150% to do what I can to ensure these Olympics come to the United States, back to the United States of America. One other issue why I believe in the Olympics. I believe strongly in the power of sport. I'm a severe dyslexic. I did not learn to read and write until I entered the 9th grade. I went to a school called Tabor Academy. Okay? It's the only school around, prep school, because I didn't learn in public school to be perfectly candid, that would deal with my learning difference. And I started learning to read and write. I was a very good athlete. My coach, who was an ex-military person, who was a Green Beret, got me off the football field. I used to be much bigger back then, and said to me, "You aren't stupid, you aren't dumb. You can go to that blackboard and don't be embarrassed about how you write at all." And I did that. I went to Tabor Academy and I graduated. And I graduated very, very well. Then I went on to Bowdoin College. Because Bowdoin College back in 1978 was the only school in the country that didn't require SAT scores. Because I got low 400s. What do you think about that? But I did very, very well academically at Bowdoin College. And I'm proud to tell you today, I'm not the chair of the board of Bowdoin College, I'm the chair of the board of Boston College. So there's a lot of reasons why I sit here today proudly. It's because of my educational background, but most importantly, because I believe in sports. I believe that sports can do the youth, and sports can do the community. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to have our team this evening. Senator, I want to thank you for your support. Chancellor Meehan, I want to thank you for your support. And I want to thank the entire Lowell community for what you're doing here tonight with us. Because we need to come together as a community to speak about the opportunities that are in front of us. So thank you very much. It's an honor.
say again, there are cards that if somebody wants to sign up, volunteer, get more information, the website is always available. There are going to be other community meetings if you feel that you want to see this again or have more questions. Do not hesitate to contact Boston 2024 at any time. This is an ongoing process, one that we need all of your support going forward. So thank you for being here tonight. We greatly appreciate it.